Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Andrew with Wealthy Fantasy Football. It's an exciting day here. Once again, taking home some wins, and I have quite a few things here to cover, to go over. I just want to do about really 5 to 10 minutes here so we can get you all a breakdown of starting with yesterday. What I'm looking at here is in tune with what I've showed you yesterday. Where I probably want you to go first is to be able to go to one of my articles, and it's called Fantasy Football Starters of Consistency Keys to Evaluating. It was back in October 2016. The article was a basis of more so like an outer evaluation, not the inside part of the game where you're, evaluating matchups, you're evaluating different factors like the defenses that you're going against, how, um, you know, physically imposive, I guess the player is in the matchup, things like that, and what you see or know in the field generally in their stats. No, this is an outside layer of what you can kind of expect to find on a consistent basis is that you have your standard deviation, for example, here with Melvin Gordon from San Diego that year. Um, in only 5 games played in that sample, but fantasy points 96, comparable to Tevin Coleman 95. Fantasy points per game 19, comparable to 19.2, and so on. Then when you look down here, another way to see it is that these were the lines of as far as their box scoring in fantasy on DraftKings that year. I'm sorry, on FanDuel. And these are just the points that they scored comparing one right next to the other. Did so with some other players there. Keys to evaluating, though, to calculate the standard deviation of the two players. That's step one. Step two is find the coefficient, that is the CV, and then consider fundamentals of matchups against players' defense, of course. That's what I'm doing first. Doing that with the pitchers, and then looking at some other factors along with standard platoon basics, and also how many teams I mean, how many runs the team normally gets when you relate it to baseball, how many runs the team normally gives up. I can show you where to get that info, and also, including the bullpens, how much they give up as well, how early they have to go to that, giving up runs, home runs, and doubles and triples, that sort of thing. So if we are really concerned about staying consistent with the process here, we need to find the standard deviation and coefficient of variation. And this is what I did yesterday. Um, as you can see here, the standard deviation, as it actually goes higher, the less consistent the player was. So if you kind of know from your fantasy football history that Melvin Gordon turned out to be a better player, a lot of that was because of playing time. Coleman was in what's considered a timeshare split. We don't have to worry about that in baseball, but coefficient variation was higher compared to him. You could say Gordon was about twice as efficient in consistency as Tevin Coleman based on the mean, that was fine, the average about 19 points. But however, deviating from that mean by up to 10.65 points created an inconsistency for Coleman to where he would not achieve the floor of what you probably wanted for your fantasy team, even on a week-to-week basis if you're playing season long. And week to week and daily, of course, it can be used as an advantage in tournaments or GPPs because that variation is higher. So when you look at it from a vacuum standpoint, you're if you increase your risk or you want to do so in a tournament, you could have an advantage for sure with Tevin Coleman, given this higher deviation from his mean and higher coefficient of variation. So that's what we used to apply here yesterday with success and cashing in on both. Just to show you here, cash here, still smaller samples for the KBO. A few contests right here, adding up to 720, and the score 114. The only guys that did not score very well floor-wise, I would say, was Sungbum Na as well as Jin Hoyak No. And so when you look at these two guys right here from yesterday, I did highlight Mr. No, and he was only 3K. So I played him in there, and he was a zero point 0.6 CV, 6.6 SD, which is pretty good, showing consistency. And then the other guy, Na, was only at, well, similar, 6.62 and 7.2 standard deviation. A lot of these players had the same similar numbers, as I like doing this now with a sample size of over really 7 games over a week in the KBO. So I like that and using that process. So what to look at next here is also though, uh, for example, with Jose Fernandez, a lot of people played him, chalky play, a higher standard deviation, 9.5. Remember, we saw that in the example with Tevin Coleman, was his was higher around that range, so he proved to be more risky. So depending on your risk tolerance for that particular slate, which I had, because I found some very low end costing players, sub 2.5K range. In fact, I think it was one of these guys were 2K and the other one was 2.1K. That's here. It's here as well as if you just go, you know, to the Wealthy Fantasy Football page. Some really cool stuff up here. You just click on one of these. There's two here for some reason. I can't figure out why. The Daily Fantasy Baseball Strategy Coaching for today, 514 KBO. Um, if you're new or a beginner, you want to pay attention to the beginning part of this to explain KBO, even if you're a beginner in baseball in general or just to KBO. Read this beginning part. Um, you know, winning result lineups were posted from previous days. You can go over if you want. Also, some other cool stuff that you really know, yeah, that I put over here actually. Let's just pull it up here to update this. And then getting into what it actually is for really, really beginning type phase, like of comparing season-long fantasy baseball to DFS. And what that is here is a nice quote from one of the comments on this page. So I need to update that here so that way it'll show. All right, so then also circling back around to once you get in there and look at that page daily, you can go ahead and join the Discord channel for Wealthy Fans Football or WFF and go ahead and get in here to some nice conversation here as well. Someone was talking to someone from South Korea, it appeared, back and forth about a couple players, maybe giving a couple tips, and of course, posting our lines, our recommendations, player pool right here, top pitching guys. Basically, that's some of the info overlaps there on the site, wealthyfantasyfootball.com. So that was also down here from, as I still have yesterday's stuff up here, will change, showing the pictures as sort of a review as well from yesterday. The games, I'm sorry, games from this morning, wasn't yesterday, for the pitcher rankings. So I did come up with here, interestingly as well, to finish out this part, that the I do a WFF projection. My projection model had, for example, Koo at 35.1 points, and let's see what he did exactly. He did 39 points. Flexen, the other top ranked pitcher for me, did only 20.7 points. I believe he did get the win, so he didn't, come up to par there. I projected him for 34.1. I felt a little bit uneasy of that due to his last performance, but what the heck. And then Tyler Wilson, 27.8, also underperformed. He did not get the win. This guy, well, you can look around. I had Drew Gagnon in my tournament. I projected him for about 23 points. Value play at 6.5K. Let's see what he did over here. Gagnon, 23.45. So he didn't get up to that level, but at least, just showing you some examples for now, but we'll proceed there today and be updated here. All that info as far as pitcher rankings and hitters based on teams to stack. Today there were three teams, so I may go that route as far as picking the three teams here today. And right here, just listing out the uh, D, sorry, the SD or standard deviation and CV or coefficient variation. So want to make sure you're clear and kind of understand all that info. I know it's a lot, it's a big chunk to chew there as far as that goes. But what's also really helpful was when you slide over here to another cool resource site, mykbo.net. You can look at, communication wise, news and ramblings, Twitter. But here is real key the schedule, statistics, and standings, which is this page right here. You can look at what I find myself using quite a lot is like just, today's games, tomorrow's games, listen to picture with some overview of stats, start time, and all that. But what's really cool is going up here. I know you can't see it exactly on the screen right above it, but it's going to player stats, and then we're clicking on team splits. And then what I'm using here a lot is like runs scored. Doosan Bears for the season so far 59 compared to, go to the bottom. SK Wyverns 26, and then runs allowed I like to use to consider my stacks for the day. So that's another little secret provided there to you and for you. All this stuff not being used for the MLB, but that's a good way to get yourself on track on the right foot there. So leave a comment as far as anything else you would like to see or any questions about the process, about what I'm putting up, posting up there so far, or anything else in general, or also join the chat, not the Slack chat, the Discord chat, and see about what we're doing in there or talking about on a daily basis there. So all this stuff has proven successful for the KBO. That even if you're not familiar with the players, you don't have to be. You can go through a process of kind of learning in a week or so, getting familiar with some of the names. But as long as you know baseball in general, fantasy baseball in general, I suppose you're on the right track. You will learn more and grow within the wealthy fantasy football era. These places I've shown you, resources, and always more to share there, especially inside the WFF Discord. All right, we'll talk to you later on. So I'll also do a rundown probably of the slate itself. Take care.